My name is Stephen Bushong. I'm a Senior Vice President at the Walt Disney Company and an executive and team coach. I started this series of recordings in order to provide people some how-tos, some information about how they can begin thinking about, planning, and then executing against their next step so they can fully step into the future that awaits them. Their recordings, previous recordings, are available at our YouTube channel, or you can go to my website at www.bushongmedia.com, and there you'll find a resources tab where you can download templates, some how-tos, and some other things to help you think about planning, executing, and stepping into your next steps. It's all about doing what's right for you so you can achieve your full potential. Today, we have a guest coming back. His name is Sean Morong. You may have remembered Sean from a previous conversation we had about going from management to leadership. We're looking forward to having Sean talk about a new topic today. It's leadership with a coaching mindset. Okay, so today, Sean, you're back with us again to talk about some really interesting things. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what we're going to talk about today?
Awesome. Thanks as always, Steve. I always love having these conversations. I'm Sean Morong. I'm a coach. I work for a large technology organization. I coach and mentor leaders. I guess my brand, if you would ask, is things like the corporate therapist or the people guy, or sometimes I'm referred to as the truly human guy. So I'm all things people and culture. What does it take to build a high-performing team, a high-performing culture, and how does coaching fit into that mix? And how do we create the best environments that we can for people that work for us or with us? So that's me. I think the topic I want to unpack today is this idea of leading with a coaching mentality. Right. And it might sound weird, but if we look at how traditional leadership I've found in my experience and through my career, it's rarely ever been with a type of coaching mindset, right? There's more of this type of boss dictatorship type of approach versus what would leadership look like if it was based in a coaching type of relationship. So that's what I think would be interesting for us to unpackage.
Awesome. So we'll dig into that and talk about why that's critically important. I got some ideas that are already coming to mind. I just want to remind people, we talked last time you and I got together, we talked about management to leadership. And I think that's something you were alluding to right there, is some of the part of the old traditional way of leading that is non-coach related is more about command and control. It's about, I tell you, you do, and we manage for performance to get this thing done. It's very transactional. And I think when we also talked about the difference in leadership is where you're starting to actually, real leadership is starting to engage, empower, and really inspire the team. So if we use that as a jumping off place, when you think about leading with a coaching mindset, what comes to mind for you?
I think the thing that comes to mind, and kind of mentioned it on our last call, which was interesting, was like this element of not being the smartest person in the room, right? And the reason why that comes to me is because when you're not being the smartest person in the room, you get to be more curious and you get to ask powerful questions. And I think when we talk about leading with a coaching mindset, the thing that is number one is your ability to ask powerful questions.
Can you give an example? Because I know you talk about powerful questions, and as coaches, we kind of understand what that means. But for a lot of our listeners, they're not coaches. When you say powerful questions, what are you talking about?
Yeah, when I say powerful questions, I'm really talking about how and what questions versus why questions, right? So a lot of times when we're in leadership positions, You may be responsible for a large project or program, or you may be responsible for delivery. And there's an element of needing to solve problems or fix stuff in that context. And you hear a lot of people asking why questions. Well, somebody gave an idea and it's like, well, why would we do that? Right? Or, well, I hear what you're saying, but what about this or what about that?
Yeah, right away you put somebody on the defensive.
Right.
It's like, oh, why? Shit. Sorry.
Yeah.
Shoot. It's like, I've got to come up. I'm getting blamed for something. Hold on. So you're putting the people that you're asking the question, even if
Yeah.
you didn't intend it, you're putting them on the defensive.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus something that has more of an energy of, okay, I hear your idea. So how does this idea support us getting to this particular place? Right? Or what about this idea do you believe is going to allow us to solve for this problem? Right? Because then the person who's not on the defensive, they get to, and this is a really key piece in the coaching, they get to go inside themselves and assess what are they trying to articulate. What about this idea is important to them that they believe is going to support the vision, versus you attempting to tell them with your why questions, basically why this is not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the powerful questions is all about bringing something up from them where they actually are the ones that are leading the way. They're coming up with the response.
Yeah, just think of it. I'm just throw some examples to see what you think about this. So I lead a large team of people, about 125 total, and you're broken up into different groups. And you know, so we're responsible for a certain activity, and we try to optimize our activity. And then when my team comes forward and say the leaders who report to me, they want to go in a certain direction that's really good for them. I always ask them the question, so if you were to put yourself in the place of your stakeholders, what would they say about this implementation or this change?
Yeah.
How would it help them improve as well? And then all of a sudden you can see, they're starting to think differently, thinking, oh, I'm thinking a little more systemically about the whole of what's going on and how it needs to happen. Another one, I don't know if this ever comes up for you. People say, oh no, we can't do that because we don't have X, we don't have Y, we don't have Z. Say, okay, what would it take to make it happen? What do we need to have in order for it to work? And all of a sudden, this excuse that they had for not getting it done, it's thrown back, and they're like, oh, well, I really didn't think about that. I just knew that we couldn't get it done, so I didn't go further. So so I see. So asking the powerful questions helps them think differently to draw more within themselves. It's interesting because does that also have another sort of an impact on how strongly they're going to push for what comes up? I mean, do they get greater ownership by doing this as well?
I do, and I think when you hand it back to them, and it's coming from a place of, we talk a lot about being naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, right? That's a great example of the essence of that is really you have all the answers within you, right? So when we ask powerful questions, we actually are handing it over to the person in a package of, hey, I know you could figure this out. I know you have great ideas. I know you can solve this problem. So I'm not going to tell you the answer, or I'm not going to tell you how I think it should go. I want you to really harness the goodness that you have, and you show me how you would do it, right? And the other thing, Steve, that came up as you were describing some of your examples is this approach also ends up fostering a culture of empathy, right? Because the way you described just now, when you say, hey, put yourself in your stakeholders' shoes, right? That requires a level of empathy, right? Because you have to as soon as you put yourself in somebody else's shoes and you attempt to see it from their perspective, that requires a level of empathy. And so that's what I love about taking a coaching mentality is it actually builds this empathy muscle for people that may not have had a chance to practice that.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. It's interesting also, as you ask questions back, you were just described it a little bit. What came to mind for me was there's also, you're creating trust, or you're demonstrating that you trust in your employee,
Yeah.
which is a way of, one, getting greater engagement, but it's also a way of making sure you're being more inclusive. By asking those powerful questions, even if, for example, you're in a meeting and there's a diverse group of people in the meeting, make sure you're being inclusive and you're asking questions of the people who are in the room to get their different points of view, their different perspectives, so we get a better view of the whole before moving forward.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so funny, and this is how you and I do things, right? As you just described this, what was coming to me was another key thing that you and I both know about a coaching type of mindset is the power of intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as you described being in a meeting and creating an inclusive environment, what ends up coming by this type of coaching approach is really digging into your level of intuition, feeling a room and being able to assess, hey, you know what, there's certain people that maybe they've been really quiet and nobody's really giving them any attention, or even just not to put them on the spot, but maybe asking a question like, hey, you know, I'd be curious so and so to get, like, what are your thoughts on what we just talked about? Or do you have a different perspective of how would you go about doing that, right? If a lot of people, when they don't take a coaching type of approach, they feel like they need to be driving the direction of the meeting, right? Or they need to be responsible for the outcomes. But when you ask powerful questions and you're there as a guide, right, which is really what a coach is in my opinion, then you can feel into the room and other people, and then that will lead you to include others or to get curious and throw out another question to the group, right, and get more creative, innovative ideas from a group.
Yeah, it's so fun because what was coming to me when you're talking about that, we talk about, listening, and in our last conversation, we're also talking, I hit the point, listen, listen, listen. It's really important to listen beyond just what's being said, because we've all been in those meetings where you've got the person who speaks the most. It's got the loudest voice. And what happens is they tend to chew up a lot of time. They take up all the space. And out of fatigue or whatever, people just tend to go along with that. And so you only get sort of like very limited ideas. By actually being the leader in the room and saying, hey, yeah, let's get other people's opinions, let's get other perspectives, other voices, and actually coaxing those out of people, because not everybody feels comfortable speaking in a room. Especially, we're talking a lot these days about, diversity, inclusivity, equity. A lot of people, wrongly, they haven't been invited to the table. Now we're going to start inviting people to everybody at the table. Now we might have to draw some information out. So let's just leave it on them to sort of fight their way through. Let's actually be proactive. Let's be proactively inclusive, and bring people in and draw them in, because we may get perspectives and ideas that we might not have otherwise gotten.
Yeah, totally. What
another? So let's say somebody wants to give an experiment. Say, what are some of the key things that we talked about? Questions. We talked about inclusion. What are some of the other things, some key things that leaders who practice sort of a coaching mindset point of view? What are some of the other things that they're bringing?
I think one of the other key things that they bring in that would be interesting to dissect is they bring an element of stretching individuals. And the parallel I'll draw to this from a coaching standpoint is, as you know, we issue challenges a lot, right? And challenges, that's something that I really liken to stretching a person, right? Where they may not see themselves as being able to do something or accomplish something or go in a particular direction. And when you take a coaching type of approach, you're often going to challenge people, challenge them beyond what they believe they're capable of, right? And help them push past boundaries and sometimes self-limiting beliefs that they've created that actually hinder them from being able to express their gifts, right? So we get to bring that level of, I'm going to stretch you, I'm going to be here to support you, but I'm going to stretch you.
Yeah, so I just like to build on that before we go on to the next one. Is challenges can be interesting. I know in the coaching work that we do, you put something out that it's almost outrageous.
Right.
You're almost outrageous, and it just shakes people up out of this stuck place that they are in their minds.
Yeah.
And to give and say, hey, here's a challenge for you. Now you can accept, you can counteroffer. Okay, you can say no. Somebody comes back and says, I can't do that. And then the next question, so if you can't do that, what can you do?
Yes.
And so what you've got the brain turning again, thinking, okay, I'm no longer stuck in this space. I can think of something else to do.
Yeah.
Great. It's great. Love that.
Yeah. And an interesting example, quickly, I'll tell you a quick sort of example. From a work context, I was responsible for providing updates on a weekly basis to an audience of really senior leaders on a client side, right? Mm-hmm. And it's almost like a courtroom style, right? Where you're coming up to a podium and you're literally presenting, and it feels like they're the jury. Yeah, exactly. You got to be all crisp and news-like, right? Bringing across this information. And so I said to a manager that was working for me, I said, hey, you know what? I think you'd be really good at taking on this meeting. And his response was, what? There's no way I can go up there and do what you do. And I said, well, let's talk about that for a minute, right? What about what I'm doing up there makes you think that you can't do that? And that's an example of a powerful question, right? Yeah. And packaged in all of this is that challenge, right? And this person started to really think about, well, what is it that maybe freaks me out about that? Or what is it that I think that I don't have to be able to do that? And as we started talking about it, he started throwing out things, well, I don't have this, or I don't do this, or you do this really well. And then again, another question around, well, what would it take for you to be able to do this in your unique way? And right. I really want to hop on that, right? It's not doing it my way, but what would it look like for you to do it in your unique way? And that's an example of how, in the end, he ended up taking it and just was killing it, right?
Yeah. It's interesting you talked about that, because a lot of times when, as a leader, we want to develop somebody, we ask them to do something, they think they have to emulate the way we've done it. Mm. And then, as you said, taking coaching mindset is really walking them through accomplishing the same results, but in their own unique way.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting, because I want to talk about a couple more things that I think a leader with a coaching mindset brings. And then I want to talk about what does this enable? What does this unlock, having this type of mindset? For me, a leader that has more of a coaching mindset is going to be a leader who actually is comfortable and can bring to the table talking about a purpose. What's the purpose of the business? What's the purpose of the department? What's the purpose of something that we're doing? Talking about the why. Simon Sinek's really famous about talking about start with the why. Talking about the vision. Where are we going? What does it look like in the future, in a future state, so that people can begin thinking about that and begin, if they can see it, they can begin making it materialize. But then also talking about the objectives, not necessarily how to achieve the objectives, but to talk about, here's what we're trying to accomplish. How can we do it? So those are a couple other things that I thought a leader with a coaching mindset would bring.
Yeah.
If we shift gears for a second, so I see the benefit, you see the benefit, we're talking about it for that reason. And I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, okay, I've heard these guys talk, okay, what's in it? What's in it for me? What's in it for my enterprise? What's in it for the organization? What's in it having or leading with a coaching mindset? What are some things that come to mind for you?
So I guess probably two main things come to mind for me is we use the buzzword innovation all the time in organizations, right? This drive and strive to innovate, right? This breeds probably the most innovation out of people taking this type of coaching mindset, because you open the person up to so much more and curiosity comes alive in them. And I think we touched on this before. That curiosity breeds creativity, which then together, when you marry those two, that's innovation, right? Wrapped around diversity.
Yeah.
Right. So that piece is huge for me. And the second piece I would say is authenticity, right? Because you bring in this human element when you take a coaching approach, and it allows the person to really step into who they are and really start becoming authentic, right? They start feeling safer. And you talk about trust. When people feel like they're trusted and there's a trusted relationship between them and their leader, then they can be more of themselves, right? They become okay to not have the right answer and to be able to fail, right? All those type of things. So those two come screaming out for me. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I've thought a lot about this, and so working at the Walt Disney Company where I do, there's always something going on. And what I found is by having a coaching mindset, it allows me to develop the leaders behind me who can actually take on more. So in a way, I actually amplify the impact enormously.
Yeah.
I mean, I work with people. I don't understand. I understand the sort of top line of what we do. I understand how it all works. I understand the big picture, but there's no way I can provide individual direction and guidance as to how to technically get accomplished what to get accomplished. So what I'm able to do by having a coaching mindset is I'm able to amplify my impact, and by developing them to have a coaching mindset, for them to amplify their mindset. So like you talked about innovation, we're actually pushing out the capability to innovate, make decisions way out there, right at the front line where if you will, the customer meets our company. And we can address it directly rather than having go up a chain of approvals, which does nothing but frustrate everybody. So I think that's one of the real key things for me. Another thing, just from a very, I guess, personal and egocentric perspective, it allows me to take on greater responsibility. Because if I can lead other people and I can coach them and enable them to actually be successful doing what they do, and do it in such a way that we're achieving objectives and we're co-establishing directions, stuff like that, then I can work on things that are more strategic, more visionary, and more breakthrough, I'll say directional, where we're taking the enterprise as a whole.
Yeah.
And so that's something. So it takes me out of the day-to-day, out of the weeds.
Yeah.
And I get to focus on the stars while they're worrying about planting crops, if you will.
Yeah, I love that analogy. Yeah. And what's interesting, and I think that supports what you're talking about, is in Accenture, where I work, we have this, we call it the way of being, right? The way we phrase it is we want to create an environment and a culture where people can bring their whole best self to work every day. And the coaching mindset really facilitates that happening, right? Kind of like everything we're talking about here. And at the core, that I feel is foundational to everything else, right? Because we got to understand people are coming in to work, well, not physically anymore based on the current landscape, but people are spending time at work multiple hours a day, right? Can you imagine what it's like to go to a place of work and do certain things for multiple hours a day, and you don't feel like you could bring your whole self to that environment,
Mm.
right? There's no way you can be at your best. There's no way you can leverage your creativity and your curiosity because you don't feel like you could be you, right? So I
Yeah.
really feel like the coaching mindset helps support that foundationally.
Yeah, it's so important when you say that is, so I've worked in both service sector, direct customer contact, and I've
Yeah.
worked in manufacturing on the line. So it's, building cars, one after the other, the same sort of thing. But even in those instances, bringing your whole self and being engaged and caring about what you're doing, think about it. You're ensuring the quality of product, you're ensuring the quality of service. By allowing people to bring them whole selves, you're actually assuring that your customer experience, whether it be through the purchase of a product, whether it be through the service that they're getting in a theme park, at a restaurant, what have you, that it's what they expect or beyond, so they keep coming back. So it's a way of actually increasing your customer loyalty. So
Yeah.
it's a real bottom line impact of allowing people to bring their whole authentic self by adopting a leadership with coaching mindset.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we're burning through time. This is just absolutely amazing. So we've talked about some great things here. How do we adopt? How do we do this? So let's say I'm a leader.
Mhm.
What do I do? I mean, here's a stat first I want to put out there. One of the things that people need to do is they need to be intentional about it. There was a study done back in the early 2000s where about 4,000 executives were interviewed, and they were asked, how good of a coach are you? How good of a coaching leader are you? Okay. 24% of them, 24% said they were above average. Say, okay, those 25. The colleagues of that 24% actually put them down in the lower third of ability. So the first thing I'd say is if you want to become a leader with a coaching mindset,
Mhm.
realize you might not be as good as you think right now. So open yourself up to learning.
Yes, yes, I love that. I love that. And what I find, and I love how we end up connecting the dots in these conversations. But if you remember when we spoke last time, one of the things that I was harping on was feedback, right? That great leaders ask for feedback. So one of the things to your question about what does one do? The easiest way to start this journey is start asking for feedback from the people that report to you, right? I believe in feedback both ways, but you want to know if you have a coaching type of mindset and are you a coaching type of leader? Ask the people that work for you.
Hey, I just need to interrupt this. What just jumped into my mind, you just triggered, was even if you have the idea, let's say you say, I think we should go right. And so you're talking to your team, I think we should go right. Rather than leaving it there, say, I think we should go right. What do you think? Let's talk
Mm.
about it. What am I missing? So
Mhm.
ask for feedback. Even on those little things, ask for
Yeah,
feedback, ask for impact.
yeah, yes, exactly. And be open to the feedback, right? And really make it known that, hey, I genuinely want the feedback because I want to grow and I want to make sure that I'm creating an environment where you feel like you could grow as well, right? And I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, right? I used to have this, I think I actually still have this mentality of, uh, I work for the people that work for me, right? It's not like, it's this element of, I need them and I work for them, right? So what am I willing to do to create an environment for them where they can do their best work versus the traditional, why I'm the lead. I have it in the title
I'm the
and
boss.
right, yeah. You report to me and you can see it on the org chart and that type of stuff. But if you could change that mindset and look at it as, hey, you know what, I work for these individuals. And from that place, who would I be to support them such that they could do their work. Right. So I don't know why that just kind of popped into my head, but
yeah, so it's good. So I'm going to say it maybe in some different words. You know, we used to talk about an upside down pyramid, like for hierarchy.
yeah.
But what came to mind was, what do I need to provide from support, resources, output from myself for them to be successful?
Mm-hmm.
And because it's by them being successful, we'll be successful. Because if you think about it, it's the lower parts of the traditional hierarchy down here that are actually the closest to the place where real value is created.
Mm-hmm.
Real value being created in direct customer contact, selling products, providing services, things like that.
Yeah.
So by thinking, how do I enable that to be as efficient, as effective, as agile and responsive to my customers' needs,
Mm-hmm.
is a great way to do it as well. So that's a really, really good thought there.
Something else kind of popped into my head just now.
How about that?
And it I don't know how this would be interpreted or how best to articulate this, but get excited about celebrating other people that are on the team, right? When you get to a place where you are jazzed up and excited, if you're in a big meeting and something great happened on your team, a lot of people, they love to, and whether it's conscious or unconscious, I'm providing the update because I'm the lead for the team.
Yeah.
So I'm going to provide the update. I'm going to tell the great things that we did and whatnot. What would it be like if before you started doing that, you had the mindset of, I have an opportunity to celebrate my team or my people or individuals on the team in this, platform that I have, right? And when you start fostering that, something happens and their names start to get known, they get recognized, and I get addicted to going back to the team and saying, if some of them weren't in that discussion, hey, you know what? People really love the work that you guys did on this area and that area. Right? And you watch them like light up and get excited. And that's this like gift that keeps giving because they want to be recognized and
Yep.
they want to know that the stuff that they're doing has meaning.
Yeah. You know, in coaching, we often call that acknowledgement. And it's just such a core to fulfillment for people to actually know that, where they've poured their energies was noticed and appreciated. And, there are little things that you can do. And again, this is maybe getting off topic, but, as a leader, there are little things you can do just to acknowledge. Send a little handwritten note. Send an email to the person and make sure their boss is aware of it. Or just talk to their boss and make sure their boss, tells them that the communication happened. Recently our team's been through a lot. So actually just sent a little tin of cookies, it's nothing. It's a little tin of cookies to everybody just to thank them for all the hard work that they've done and that it's been appreciated. And this is what them investing the time and energy they have, that's what it's allowed us to do. So, things like that, just acknowledging people, I think you're right. It's easy. It may not be natural, but if we can start forcing ourselves to do it, it'll become natural. Do it for 2 weeks and then it'll become natural.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Any other practical next steps for the people who are listening to this about thinking about how to be a leader with a coaching mindset?
And maybe this is in the realm of powerful questions, but what I would say is ask people how they like to be communicated, how they like to be rewarded, right? When you ask folks on a team how they like to process information, how they like to be led, right? And how do they like to be recognized? Because not everybody wants to be put up on a grand stage.
Right.
Hey, so and so you did, right? And it's amazing when you ask people and they tell you. Some will say, you know what, I cannot stand being the spotlight. what I do appreciate though is if I could take half a day, or if I could take off early, like that would be really great. Or if you sent me a simple thank you, and just let me know that you appreciated what I did, like that's good enough for me. Or I've had people say to me, way that you could make me feel appreciated, like give me more stuff. I love fixing stuff. So, you know, the more stuff you give me that challenges me, that tells me that you really value what I'm bringing to the table. And I get excited about that.
Awesome. Awesome. We all can be better with more excited people, more fulfilled people around us. That's great. We'll stop it right there, Sean. This is great. Oh, your camera's just gone blurry. How about that? Okay, so we always have these little technical issues from time to time.
Yes.
So again, Sean, where can how can people reach out to you? I think, you know, I'll probably put it overlay, but I think,
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best place to reach me. I also talked last time about my culture coaching arena that I have up on my private practice. So they could email me at sean.morong@accenture.com, or they can email me at theculturecoach1@gmail.com. So
awesome. Sounds perfect. Okay, great. Well, hey, thanks a lot. This has been again another amazing conversation. There are things in here that I think we're going to pull out and we're going to unpack in one of our next talks.
yeah, definitely, and I'm glad to see I'm looking clearer now than I was just.
Awesome. Okay, Sean, you have a great day. Stick around and we'll talk about some other things.
You bet, Steve.